The default effects or default attributes that every shot has are, of course, quite basic. It is things like position, scale, rotation, and of course you can add more complex effects to the shot to manipulate the image even more and to add things to the image. The different effects that you have in Premiere are in the effects window here on the left side, or if you don't find it, you have it on the window and effects. We have audio effects. They are quite basic, but if you want to do simple things with audio, they are sufficient. And then we have video effects. And as you see, there are hundreds of video effects gathered in different folders here. Many of them are the same effects that you have in Photoshop. And just as in Photoshop, many of these effects are very specific and maybe not that very useful always. Like brush strokes, color emboss, things like that. That's not what you usually want to have. But you have some basic but important effects also. For example, the ones that are controlling grayscale and color in the image. And that is something that you often want to do. When you work with the grayscale and the color of the image, you call that color grading. And that's a very important part of movie making. To make the images look better or to tell a part of the story. And the tools that you have, the effects that you have to control grayscale, colors and so on are actually, there are very many and they are a little bit spread out in different folders here. Under Adjust, for example, you have levels, one of my favorite tools for this. In order to apply the effect, you drag and drop it to the shot. And when you do that, and you have the shot selected in the timeline, then in Effect Controls, you have the effect here. The levels effect is down here. If I open that up, I see that the effect is actually composed of many different attributes. I can control these attributes by sliding these slides here or writing numbers. And I can change the image quite a lot, as you see. But it's not really intuitive to work with this one, so usually I don't do that. When it comes to this specific effect, the levels effect, you have a kind of setup window that looks like this. And this one is much more easy to work with. Here you change the grayscale of the image by sliding these arrows here. And quite often it is quite small changes that you want to make. One trick is to make the grayscale changes to a specific color channel. If I do it to the red channel, for example, you see that I can either increase the amount of red or decrease it. And that is actually one way to color grade the image, to change the actual hue of the image, which can be quite effective. If I click OK on that one, the change is applied on the actual shot, and I see it in the monitor window. Very often you work with subtle small changes, especially when you work with color grading. You don't want to overdo it. And often I find myself in the situation that I don't really know if the effect makes the shot better or not. So one small trick there is to toggle the effect, turn it on and off like this. And if I do that and compare the original look with the new look, I can see that, well, it actually looks better now. So I keep that effect. And as you see, the effect is kind of attached to the shot. If I go to another shot, I don't have the effect here. If I want to apply the same effect on this shot, I can actually copy and paste the effect between different shots. So if I go back to the first shot and select the effect and then Ctrl+C on the keyboard to copy. Then I go back and select the other shot that don't have the effect. And then if we look in the effect control window now, when I do Ctrl+V for paste in, you'll see that the effect appears here now. So I have the effect on both shots now. And that can be very convenient. Okay, let's see what I have more for effects. Blur and sharpen can actually be quite useful if you want to blur the image to achieve specific looks. For example, if you want to blend different images and one of the images should be blurred, the other one sharpened, whatever. In this case, the effect is very simple. It has just one important attribute here, and I can just slide this slider to blur the image. And if I don't want to use that effect, I select it and press delete on the keyboard to take it away. We have more color correction here in the folder called color correction, and one of my favorites is the color balance, especially this color balance HLS. If I apply that, drag and drop it to the shot and open it up in the effect control, you can see that this one is also quite simple. It has 3 attributes that I can easily control by sliding the slides here. And this is very subtle small effects that I want to do with this. The hue is the color, reddish, greenish, and so on. And the lightness is of course the brightness of the image, but usually I don't use that one. I use levels instead to control the brightness. And then we have the saturation to increase the saturation of the color, or especially decrease the saturation. I like this desaturated look very much, and it is easy to achieve with this color balance effect. So that kind of effect are manipulating what you already have in the image. Then you have, of course, effects that add things to the image. And for example, we have noise and grain. If you want to add some noise to the image, you have that here. The noise looks like this if you turn it on. Now it's very exaggerated for you to actually see it in the recording here. But of course, usually you want some very subtle, small effect. But it depends on what you want to achieve, of course. So in this case, we have 3 effects hooked onto the shot: levels, color balance, and noise. And I can disable them all and turn them on again. Sometimes it can be a good idea to disable all the effects, just to single out one of the effects, because if you have added many effects on the shot, it can be a little bit confusing what is actually going on. So toggling on and off the effects can be very useful sometimes.